Hi, everyone, and welcome to A Better Future Starts Here, a live weekly show brought to you by the American Society for the Positive Care of Children. I'm your host, Tracy Kawa. American SPCC, the American Society for the Positive Care of Children, is dedicated to improving the lives of children and families in the United States. We are America's voice for children, bringing you the experts that bring perspective and industry knowledge so that children can thrive in our society and become healthy leaders of tomorrow. Today with us, we're happy to bring you Sabrina Rose. As a survivor of 17 years of abuse, Sabrina now leverages her psychology and exceptionality in human learning backgrounds to help others break the cycle of abuse. She's currently working towards her PhD in holistic counseling and her certification as a trauma recovery practitioner. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sabrina. I really appreciate having you here.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure. Honestly, I was very excited to have this interview with you.
Awesome. Awesome. Sabrina, tell us a little bit about your passion for families and children.
With families and children, that's where our stories begin. And I
Yeah.
think that's really the most important thing for us to realize. And if we don't know where we came from, we don't know where we're going. And I think it's so important with understanding, especially in COVID times, we're spending all of our times at home with our families. And this is where we develop our children's childhood. So if we can help shape beautiful, wonderful childhoods for our children, then we can help develop a more beautiful tomorrow for them and help them develop more well-shaped adulthoods and make them more well-rounded. And I understand what it's like to have gone through difficult childhood. I've been through that. I've gone through trauma myself. So having or being going through this, what we're going through, this pandemic worldwide, it's so important for us to talk about this today. The world is going through these massive changes. We're going through this worldwide awakening. And because we're spending so much time at home, this is the time for us to do this. We're working from home. Our kids are spending or schooling from home. This is our opportunity to really put in the work because we're interacting with each other so much. So this is our opportunity to really spend time with each other and really have a go at it and make things better for each other.
That's beautiful. And I love how you say we're shaping their memories, their childhood memories. That's beautiful. Thank you. How did you yourself get into trauma recovery? Can you share a little bit about your past with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I've been through a lot of trauma myself. So as you mentioned, I had 17 years of abuse and trauma. I went through physical abuse, emotional abuse, spiritual abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse, you name it, I faced it. Childhood abuse, I went through relationship abuse. I really didn't realize that I was going through it when I was going through it. And I think when you're so close to the wall, you don't realize that you're blinded by that wall
Mm.
until you're almost paralyzed to it. And when people are telling, oh, life is so beautiful, like look at the sunset behind you, you don't realize that that's what's happening. And or you don't realize the beauty in life. And I was able to build my muscles and I was able to slowly be able to turn around and look from side to side and see what was around me. And eventually I was able to turn my body and look at the horizon and see this beautiful sunset. And I see everyone else who's lining up against this wall, staring at it this close
Mm.
against it. And I want to help them turn and step away from that wall because I've been there. I was standing there with them. So I want them to turn and face and see the sun and see the horizon and see that they can step away if they want to. So, with that being said, um, having gone through it, I understand. And I went to school for psychology and exceptionality, human learning, and um, while studying for my PhD and learning to do or um, doing my trauma certification, this is definitely something that I want to help others, having experienced it in my life.
That was a beautiful analogy. And it's very real because when you're that close to something, it's very hard to identify what is happening in that moment, right? Because it's such an exaggerated image right here. It's hard to gain that perspective that we need. I want to backtrack just for a second because you mentioned something. I think that I know for me, I'm very familiar with the different types of abuse that you mentioned, except for one, when you mentioned spiritual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Can you clarify, not only for me, but I'm sure that there are other people
Yeah,
out there that may not know exactly what you mean by that, or if your perception of spiritual abuse would be how I would define it.
absolutely. Spiritual abuse is when you are shamed for not following a religion to the
Mm,
point of that you're expected to, or it could be through spiritual leaders, it could be through family, um, that you are expected to follow, or you could be manipulated through religion. You could be, now,
yeah,
I'm not saying religion is bad because I do believe in God and I do believe in religion,
yeah.
but this is when people are abusing power
Mm,
because religion, in my humble opinion, was not created by man, it was created by God. So spiritual abuse is when someone abuses their power. Same thing like politics, for example.
mhm.
Politics was created for a politician to be the servant of the people.
Oh,
But when they abuse power, they abuse the people. So it's the same kind of ideal, but just in a spiritual sense. So for someone who's not religious to kind of understand it in that way.
yeah, that's great perspective. Can you explain what exceptionality in human learning is? It's a mouthful.
Exceptionality in human learning is to understand the people who lie outside of the bell curve. So, for example, most people who lie on that bell curve are people who usually understand learning through the normal methods of learning. So, through normal schooling, for example. But the people who lie outside of that bell curve would be outliers, for example, or people who need to go through gifted schooling or who might be autistic, might have Down syndrome, who might have Asperger's, who might be visually impaired, those kind of things. So, exceptionality in human learning are those types of things. Or they might have ADHD, ADD, they might or you might, how do you learn when you have anxiety? How do you learn when you have
Mhm.
depression? Any of these things would be um, exceptionality because they are exceptional human beings. They don't fall within that bell
Mhm.
curve of the normal, and I
Yeah,
say normal with quotation marks because
yeah.
what is normal? They don't fall within the normal population. How do these people learn and how can we help them learn?
Is there a relation or relationship between the the outliers that you just mentioned and trauma and abuse? Or are they two
Um,
areas of specialty for you?
For me, there are two separate areas of specialty, but I could see that I wouldn't say that they're caused, but I could definitely see a correlation because people are treated differently when they are seen
Mm,
as different in society.
very good.
So if someone has Asperger's, ADHD, Down syndrome, anxiety, they could be called stupid and dumb and difficult to teach. Now you have self-fulfilling prophecy, and now they're taught that in their mind. Now what does that happen to that child? They consistently tell themselves that. And what does that happen as they go on to live in their lives? As they go on to live in their lives, they're going to make it difficult for themselves to find a job. They're going to make it difficult for themselves to believe that they're worth anything.
Mhm.
They're going to make it difficult for themselves to find a healthy, normal, or healthy, loving relationship. I'm not going to say normal because I don't like that word, so I apologize. They're going to find it difficult for themselves to find loving partnerships, um, companies that treat them well, bosses that respect them, paying wages that pay them well. They're going to do self-sabotaging behaviors. Why? Because they might have had these exceptional characteristics and they were told that they would never amount to anything. So now it became a self-fulfilling prophecy and
Mhm.
they created this trauma within them that they
Mhm.
would never amount to anything.
How do you help these people within your own practice? How do you help these individuals?
So for me personally, what I do, my main focus is to help break the cycle of trauma. Um, what I specifically do is I teach them to, first and foremost, as I said, if you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. So people need to understand, where did this start? And a lot of people don't have that introspection. They don't have that awareness. And if you do, that's fantastic. I think that's beautiful. But if you don't, I really, really suggest that you do some inner work, you do some journaling, dig deep a little bit inside to see, where did this come from? Was it a teacher? Was it a parent? Was it a bully? Whose voice is it in your head that's telling you you're not worth it because it's not yours? Because when you were a kid, all that confidence was there, and then someone, you know, pushed or, pinned you down, pushed you down, and then that voice changed, and it's not your voice speaking, it's someone else's voice. So dig down a little bit and see whose voice that is. So that's first and foremost. Once you've started to understand a little bit of where you came from, you need to do a little bit of anchoring. And there are several things to learn of how to break that cycle. So first or secondly, after you learn of where you've came from, you need to learn where you want to go. So what is it that you'd like to do? So when you have trauma, your imagination completely stops. There are many things in the brain that stops. Our imagination, our right side of our brain often shuts down, and our left side of our brain is much more active, especially when we're um, having panic attacks and visions of what we've gone through. Um, so our right side of our brain, where we're more creative, often shuts down quite a bit when we have um, these kind of panic attacks and stuff like that. So we need to be more engaging on our right side of our brain. Sorry, on our left side of our brain, so that we can. Sorry, I do apologize. On our right side of our brain, so that we can be more creative and be more imaginative. So the next thing I encourage is, what did you enjoy doing as a child? Start taking part in those things again. And it's not, and that's not where the healing stops. So for example, what really brought you a lot of joy as a child? Did you enjoy drawing? I bet you don't draw anymore. I bet you thought, now it's stupid. Someone told you it's dumb and you don't want to do it anymore. You really enjoyed dancing. You were a gymnast and you stopped. Why did you stop? Something creative. You were really imaginative and you stopped. Why did you stop? All of these things, you have to reconnect with yourself. Those are also things to break the cycle. Once you start doing these things and you start reconnecting with yourself, you start to engage more with yourself. Okay? Then you start creating other situations. You start to create boundaries because now you're connecting more deeper within yourself. Okay? Once you start connecting more deeper within yourself, you start to realize, what am I going to allow into my life? Because you're creating a deeper connection within yourself. So as you do that, you're creating this deeper connection with yourself, and you're not looking so much for external factors and external validations. So you're more engaged with yourself. So you're no longer looking for external factors. You're no longer looking for that external validation. You're creating the way I have a term for it, and I call it anchoring. And the more you start to create this time with yourself and more self-love, the term I call for it is you're anchoring yourself. So it's like you're a boat, okay? And you're setting the anchor down into the ocean. It's a beautiful day, and you're just throwing the anchor down. And I like to visualize things.
Love
And
it.
you're throwing the anchor down, and it's just in case that storm comes. And there's going to be a storm that comes, so that when that storm comes, you're going to be okay. Yeah, the boat might rock a little bit, but you've thrown that anchor down for when that storm comes. And that means when you're going to have someone who tries to come in and be abusive, you're going to be able to put your boundaries down and say, nope, I don't accept this. Nope, I don't tolerate that anymore. Because I know who I am. And I don't have any room for that in my life. But there are many things that you need to do before that, because the ocean is deep, as we all know, and the anchor is going down and down and down and down. That ocean is really, really deep. So there's so many things that you need to do while that anchor is going way down until it hits the ocean floor. I hope that there was a little bit of a rant there, but I hope that explained a little bit of my method.
I think it was a great rant. And the whole concept of anchoring, wow. Because really, we do have to be rooted in something, in some kind of belief, and in some kind of self-love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? The ability to love ourselves so that then we can create healthy boundaries, right? Which is the title of today's interview, right? Creating healthy boundaries after trauma and abuse. I think that was perfect. Sabrina, in earlier conversations, you had mentioned the different types of parenting styles.
Yeah, I
Can you
did.
tell us a little about those? Because I found them to be very fascinating, and I'm sure our listeners would like to hear them.
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you them. So there are 4 types of parenting styles. So there is the dismissive parenting, or parent rather, who treats the parent, or who treats the child as if they're trivial, they're unimportant. And what happens or they're very disengaging towards the child's feelings, ignores the child, and might see the child's emotion as a way to fix this person's emotions, or minimize the child's feelings, and might not problem solve with that child. Would rather try to solve for the child.
Hmm.
right? They don't really teach the child how to do things. They fix it for the child. It's very dismissive. Um, and what happens is that child quickly learns that their feelings are wrong, their
Hmm.
feelings are not valid. Um, they feel like there's something wrong with them, right? Inherently wrong with them. And they quickly learn over time as adults if they're able to do some introspection, but they have difficulty regulating their emotions.
Hmm.
Um,
So
and
important to
often,
validate, right? To validate our
yeah,
children's feelings, and it's, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but it amazes me because, and I'm guilty of this myself, like quite often thinking I'm helping by doing, when in
absolutely.
reality, that's not always helping.
Hmm.
Sometimes you need to help them help themselves. I think
Absolutely.
for children,
But we just feel like, let me just do it for them because it's faster.
right? Just get it done.
Just get it done. And you're not the only one who feels this way. We all feel this way, like let me do it and it'll be done faster and it'll be done right.
Well,
But
and it happens in the workplace too. It happens everywhere. It
everywhere.
can happen with a spouse. It can happen with a friend. It can happen in the workplace when we don't
Absolutely.
slow down enough to train others. So when
Or
it happens with
trust
our children,
others.
trust others to get it done the right way.
Or
Right.
trust others to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. Good, valid point.
And if others do it a different way, it doesn't mean they're wrong. I mean, my mother knows this is why I don't cook in her kitchen. I will say this on live Facebook.
Is mom watching? Hi,
Oh,
mom.
she 100% can watch this. She knows this is why I don't cook in her kitchen because if it's not her way, I won't do it. Love you, mom, by the way.
We love you.
um, but yeah, this is why we don't allow other people to do things because we want it done our way. It's not
Right.
done our way. It's not done right.
Yeah.
We're so stubborn. We're such
Oh,
stubborn human beings.
and
So that
tradition.
that's the first parent, and those kids issue regulating their emotions because their emotions were never valid.
Hmm. What are the other
So
types of
the
parenting styles?
the second one, the disapproving parent. Okay. So this one also has similar um, behaviors as a dismissive parent, but it's much more negative. So they'll judge their child, they'll criticize their child's emotional expression. Um, they believe negative emotions need to be controlled. And they'll really emphasize um, good standards of behavior. They really want their child to behave in a positive form. Um, Emotions make people weak.
Hmm.
We need to be tough. Don't cry. This negative emotions are unproductive, waste
Hmm.
of time. And I was watching a show the other day where it's like the kind of like those Hollywood moms, crying her for babies. Don't hold me. You're not a baby. And I'm quoting word for word.
Oh,
This is what some of their moms were saying to the kids, and I was like, those kids are gonna have trauma when they're growing up.
wow.
I was like, those girls are gonna be calling me in the future, like, I don't want them to, but
Let's backtrack just for a minute.
yeah,
So when we think of trauma, can you can you actually define trauma? When we think of trauma, like when I think of trauma, I'm thinking trauma, abuse, you know, a lot of times I think of trauma as being manifested as, something spoken or something physical. Can you define it?
that's a really good question. I don't think I've had anyone ever asking that before.
Awesome. Awesome.
um Trauma.
Just how
Let me
would
think about
you
it.
define it?
Trauma is something that has affected us to the point where it's, I'm trying to pick my words carefully here.
Yeah.
It's affected us to the point where it's been long lasting. So trauma could be, physical, emotional, could be many things. Um, I could smack my hand and I hurt my hand, but I physically hurt my hand, but is that trauma? Okay, well, a doctor might say trauma to the hand. Okay, so if we're talking about trauma in my sense, um, trauma is something that lives in our DNA.
I
It
understand.
lives in it lives in our cells.
Mm.
That even after time has gone by, it lives in our body. That's what trauma is.
Yeah. So it can be like PTSD, it can be
Yes.
any kind of abuse of the various forms that you mentioned previously.
And it's so what I mean is trauma doesn't just live in our brain, it lives molecularly in our entire
Mhm.
body. So it can show up through anxiety, it can show up through cancers, it can show up through heart attacks, it can show up through bad cholesterol. It literally shows up in our body molecularly. We need to expel our trauma, not just through talk therapy. We need to expel our trauma through the actions we take physically on a day-to-day basis and through other methods such as yoga, meditation,
Mm.
um, physical actions. Just
Okay.
talk therapy is not enough because talking about it is very easy. Talking about it is not a way to release your trauma. It can be very easy to talk about the one you hate, the person that caused you the trauma. But can you talk about forgiving yourself for putting yourself through that? Not so easy.
Got it. So we have the disruptive parent, we have the judgmental parent. The other two forms?
So the dismissive and the disapproving, yes, and the laissez-faire, which is French, which means like let them do whatever they want, which accepts all emotional expression, but offers little guidance. So they just pretty much don't set any limit, just let them go crazy. So this is like the one where you go to the mall and you just see the kid running around doing whatever they want.
Mhm.
That's that kind of parent.
The laissez-faire.
Um,
Mom shop.
yeah,
Got it.
yeah.
We got
So it's like I don't tell my child no. I don't tell them yes. I let them do whatever they want. That's that kind of parent. Um, they don't help their child solve problems. They believe that there's little you can do about negative emotions other than let them ride out. Not true. You can totally talk them through it. So what this happens is they don't learn to regulate their emotions. They have trouble concentrating. They're not able to make friends. They don't get along with other kids. So that's what happens with that kind of parent. And the last type is the emotional coach, where they value negative emotions and they think it's an opportunity for intimacy, and they value their emotions, and they see negative emotions as an important area for parenting. They don't make fun of them. They don't say how the child should feel, and they listen to them. And what happens is the child learns to trust their feelings. They're able to regulate their emotions, and they can solve their own problems. And they end up having a high self-esteem. So this
it.
emotional coach is the best type, of course.
The best kind of parents. We all strive to be the emotional coach. Got it.
Absolutely.
Got it.
Absolutely.
Segueing into what is the best piece of advice that you can give parents and caregivers?
Um, as a parent, Your kid sees all. Don't think that they don't. And that's number one. And number two, with that being said, everything that you do, they will mimic and replicate into their life. I cannot tell you how many people I've helped that they're like, yeah, that's exactly what my parents did, and now I'm doing it.
Wow.
So if there is something that you're going through and you think that you can hide it from your kids, you can't. And if you would like your kid's life to be better than whatever you're going through at this moment, if you're in an abusive situation and you're like, I need to get out of this for the sake of my children, then get out of it for the sake of your children. Be strong for the sake of your child so that they can learn that you were able to walk away. And you don't need to walk away alone. There is support out there. There are countless free resources. You can just Google it. Countless free resources. Reach out to someone, a friend even. Someone will help you. Your kid sees and hears everything you do, even if you think they don't.
Great advice. You are so full of knowledge and so resourceful. Thank you so much, Sabrina. Sabrina, where can our listeners find you?
On Facebook, I actually have a Facebook page, and you can come find me on here. Yeah, message me, and I'm more than happy to give you some free resources, give you some free coaching, give you some tips, whatever you need. I'm here to be at service. Really, I've gone through it, and honestly, that's really what my journey is about. I don't want other people to go through what I went through. So whatever I can offer and help other people with, that's why I'm here, honestly. And Tracy was kind enough to bring me on this show. So if I can offer
As a matter of fact, I met you on Clubhouse. You were moderating a room and giving such incredible information. You had some additional moderators with you, but you were so insightful. I had to bring you on for our listeners. I would have been doing a disservice if I didn't bring you on.
Thank you. You're so kind, Tracy.
So if you want to catch Sabrina, you can also catch her on Clubhouse. If you don't have the app, you might want to download it along with
Absolutely.
the app. I had to throw that in there because you know how I love my Happy Child app. So if you want to find Sabrina, find her on Facebook at Sabrina Rose Coaching or on Clubhouse. I'm going to do a quick little outro and then I'm going to be right with you, Sabrina. So thank you again for joining us today. You are an amazing guest. Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have great insight, valuable information, and I would love for our listeners to reach out to you. Right? We hope that they don't need you, and if they do, you're there for them, which is great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you are looking for more incredible resources like this, please visit our Learning Center at americanspcc.org. And don't forget to download the Happy Child app, a useful free parenting tool that helps you create healthy bonds with your children. And it helps them create happiness that lasts a lifetime. To contribute to the conversation, or if you know anyone who is uplifting children, families in their community, please email us at info@americanspcc.org. Let's make a difference together. Visit us again at americanspcc.org to learn how you can help. And remember, a better future starts here. Thank you.